wanted to make a video for this coming Sunday, and I've been wanting to make this video for a while. Today we are talking about the 25-06. Now, I have always liked the 25-06. Always, always, always. Maybe just because it's 06. You guys already know how I feel about my 30-06. Good afternoon. My name is Tom. I come to you from the Rustic log cabin in Northern Maine. Get yourself a cup of coffee. It's raining today. It's been pouring cats and dogs. We've lost the power several times. Been that way all night and all day. It's about 4 o'clock now, so I wanted to make a video for this coming Sunday, and I've been wanting to make this video for a while. Today we are talking about the 25-06. Now, I have always liked the 25-06. Always, always, always. Maybe just because it's 06. You guys already know how I feel about my 30-06. Well, I have no idea how long I've had this gun. I would say a minimum of 20 years. A minimum. I got this gun through trading and bartering. A fella I know had a boat that he wanted fixed up, so I took it in during the winter months, put it down in my basement, and I worked on it all winter. And the basement's where you see where I have the bait, my bear baiting and all that right now, if you followed those videos. So I slid the boat. It was a Grand Laker, made right here in Maine, a wooden boat. I slid it in the basement for that winter. Put some new ribs into it, refiberglassed it, made it so it was sound and ready for the water. And in return for the work was this rifle. This rifle and a 4-horse Johnson motor, 1974. So we traded those two motors. We traded that motor and this gun for the work that was done to the boat. So that's the story behind this gun. So I've had this gun a long time, this rifle. It's a bolt-action Ruger 25-06. I have a Bushnell scope on it, nothing fancy. This is my coyote gun. Let's start out there. If you guys don't know what I want to talk about the 25-06 because I'm not sure if a lot of people, especially in the state of Maine, know that much about a 25-06. This is a long-range rifle. If I'm going to leave my 30-06 at home for long-range stuff, this is the rifle for that. I use this rifle for coyotes, primarily. The furthest coyote I took with this rifle was at just after dawn, and it was 450 yards in a field that I'd called in. He come in the back corner, and he was beating feet for the other corner when he kind of figured out he'd been tricked. By that time, he was in the middle of the field. So if you don't know about coyotes, if you howl at them, they will stop dead in their tracks. So he was on a dead run, headed away from me. I howled at him like another coyote, and he come to a screeching halt, ripped his head around, and took a look at me, and I put the bead on him and dropped him. Well, in my scope, all I could see was that coyote skidding down the corn rows like he had been hit by a freight train. He probably skidded 25 feet down the corn row, over a couple corn rows, and from that point on, I just love the power that this gun has. This 25-06 is super for long-range shot on deer. If I'm setting on, which I rarely do, but if I am going to set on a power line and wait for deer, this is the rifle I'm going to bring. Plain and simple. You guys already know how I feel about the 30-06. This will outshoot the 30-06 on long range easily. It's a 25 caliber bullet. It falls under bullet placement again. You just can't get up there and start sending lead down range. Take your shot, take a good shot, this gun will deliver. It's a flat shooting rifle. And the bullets that you can put through this thing, and actually the case is a 30-06 case. I'm pretty sure I was trying to. I got so many cases up here. I was trying to look through because when I first got the gun, it was hard to get 25 caliber 25-06 cases. So what I did in the meantime was I'm pretty sure it was a 270 is what I had, and I was trying to look for those old cases if I still had. I know I still got them because I don't get rid of anything here in the reloading room. So I had pushed the 270s through my case, the die case, and sized them down, sized the neck down to a 25 to the 25 caliber bullet, and I did the same thing with some 30-06 stuff. Now I've got plenty of 25-06 cases, so I don't need to do that. But in the beginning, I took some of my 30-06 cases, sized them down, and I'm really sure I took some 270s. So if I'm wrong there, I apologize, but I'm pretty sure they were 270s. And I don't own a 270, but when I'm at the shooting range, I always pick up brass. You never know when you're going to pick up that gun and want some of that brass kicking around, or someone you know might say, hey, you got any extra 270s? So if I can help out a buddy with some reload supplies, I always do. So if somebody's throwing this stuff away, I'm definitely bringing it home and putting it on the shelf here in the reloading room. So anyways, long and short of it, this is my long range rifle. Like I said, if I'm going to set in a field that's 500 yards across it, I don't really believe the gun is much better after 500 yards, but I would have no problem taking a shot at 450 to 500 yards. The 30-06 is going to drop a lot of distance, getting out at there. So I would never use a 30-06 out over, say, 200 yards. Which, like I said, I don't make them long shots anyways. But if I do, this is the gun that I fall back on. And what's nice about this gun, this is a book that every bullet that I have ever made is in books like this in this room. And it's the recipes that I used to come up with the load. And it took me, I worked with this gun for 2 or 3 years before I found a load that I really liked for this gun. And it ended up being load number 9 out of, it was probably 25 different recipes I put through it before I'll look and tell you here in a minute. 21. So I made up 21 different recipes for this particular rifle. And with this rifle, now each rifle will be just a tiny bit different what they like. That's what I found with my rifles anyways. But what this rifle particularly liked was an 87 grain spear point Hornady bullet at 3,300 feet per second. And I used a Winchester primer, a Remington case, and the powder was IMR 4831. And the weight for that particular powder was 54.4 grains. So that's the recipe that this gun liked, and the length on it was 3.160 is what this gun liked for bullets. So that's what I use. If you happen to get one of these, maybe that could be a starting point for you. But I like them guns at 100 yards to be shooting a 1/4 inch. And that way, the longest shot that I have at the shooting range is 200 yards. So when I get out to 200 yards, if I can still make them bullets touch each other, then they're going to do really well at 300 and 400 when I'm out there hunting for coyotes. And the same thing with a deer. Now, what I mean by placement of the deer, now you all know that I'm a meat hunter. So the hide, the head, and all that doesn't really matter too much. All the bucks that I've taken over the years, I just whack the racks off and they're hanging up down in my shop. So when I've always firmly believed kill the head and the body's dead. Well, that's the same thing with deer, and with this rifle it's the same thing. So, you know, pick an eyeball on that deer, just below the ear. And if you know your gun and you know what it's going to do, to me, that's the shot to take if you can pull that one off. Same thing with your heart and lung shots. You know, if he's getting out there, you're going to want a little bigger target. Now, I don't have the best scopes that are out there, but this scope is adjustable on both ends. This is a Bushnell Banner scope. For me, it's all I need, and this is especially for my coyote hunting. So that's the gun that I use. I guess my bullets for it are over there, but I wanted to do a thing today on the 25-06 that I own. If any of you know anything about the 25-06, drop some comments in the and let me know, because I haven't run into too many people at the shooting range that are playing with the 25-06, and this was one of the guns that I really wanted to get my hands on years ago. I don't own a rifle that's not something that I can use, or a shotgun or anything like that. I don't have a collection of guns that just sit on the shelf. I call them all working guns, you know, depending on what I'm going to do and how I'm going to do it. This is what my rifles do. So, you know, I love collecting guns. I'm sure I don't have a high value collection like some of you probably do. But they're all working guns. Every single one of them has made a kill at some point in my past, as well as coming up here in the future. So, but a gun like this, I mean, and we'll get into other guns down the road. But this week I wanted to cover the 25-06. I have a 22-250 that I'd like to cover, and I do have some targets. I'll bring out some targets. I'll be right back. It's the same thing with my targets. You see, I got a folder here. There's not a bullet that I've made in the last, well, I've been reloading for over 35 years. There's not a bullet I have made that I have not kept track of. The same thing goes with each gun. Each gun, I make up my own targets. All they are is a white sheet of paper with, depending on where I am shooting. But that one right there is a 1/2-inch dot. October 30th, 2018. There's 3 rounds. Load and load number 9. I don't know if you can see on there. This room isn't exactly set up for taking videos, but as far as lighting goes. But each one of my targets, I write down the recipe on it, as well as, you know, like the weather and all of that. It was a sunny day that day. I write down the date, I write down the recipe, and then the target ends up in my folder of targets for that gun. And that way, when I'm back here in the reloading room, I don't, you know, like this one here, 2018. You just go through you can just go through your guns and you can see what the heck they were doing that particular day. And this is same thing, load number 9, and I got 5 rounds right there in the center at 200 yards. This is a good one too. Yeah, load number 9. I got stuck on load number 9 and I stayed there. You know, so and I don't know when would that was the same thing, 2018. So I got stuck on that load number 9, and that's the only bullet I build for that gun now. Here's a different load number 18. Same shooting range, same everything, and you can see what I mean by difference. When I'm doing guns, this is what I want. I want a nice tight group like that, and not that. Will this kill an animal? Yeah, it will still kill an animal. But can I guarantee I can shoot him in the eyeball? I probably can't. There's a pretty good chance, if I want to pick a spot behind the ear, that this target will do it. I mean, that's a nice circle. You know what I mean? It's definitely a good circle for a bullet, but it's not what I strive for. And I got, you know, like with this one here, you know darn well, look how small that circle is. That's a 1/2 inch. If you're going for the eyeball, there's a pretty good chance you're going to do it. So that's, that's the type of stuff that I'm looking for. And that was, this is load 17, same thing. Load 17's all over the place. Load 20. It doesn't matter where the dot is. What we're after is a tight group. Moving this down is a matter of adjusting the scope, as most of you know. All that matters when I'm at the target range is how tight that group is. That was load 20. Here's another load 20. Now that's still a nice group for most of you, but that's not what I'm looking for. Here's what I'm looking for. This would be back in 07, load 19. Look at that group. There's 5 rounds in there with 1 flyer. The 1 flyer down here usually means me. That's, if you got a group that tight, there's 4 rounds above it and 1 outside, then that usually means that it was me that didn't hold the gun as good as I could have. Let's see. There's a whole bunch of loads on this one. You can put on more dots than on one paper. Load 8, load 8, and load 8. So there was 3 different tests on that load number 8. And to me, they're all over the place. They're sighted. I mean, you can tell. They're pretty much in a straight line on that top one, but this is load number 7. Same thing. See, load number 7. I'm hoping you guys can see that. Hear the rain? But load number 7, no tight group at all. This one, this is load number 4, and that's promising. They're getting a little bit tight. But that's what reloading can do for you. You can adjust these bullets to get that group tighter, 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 tighter. And that's why sometimes it might take, and I don't mind, I got a lifetime to do this in. Sometimes it'll take a bunch of trips to the shooting range. With me, if I play with a gun for 2-3 years, it doesn't matter. The gun's not going anywhere. I'm shooting other guns in meantime, but in the same token, I'll just make up another load, take it back to the shooting range, give it a test, and that's what went on with this rifle until I ended up, and I went way past load number 9, because you still, even though load number 9 is darn good, load number 9 is darn good right there, and that was, well, doesn't matter. 07 was one of them targets I showed you. You never know, you might be able to get it even tighter than that. So that's why you keep moving on. Let's see, this one doesn't have what load it was, but look at the all spread out all over the place. I number each one of my targets. You see the number up in the corner? That number I'll write in that book of recipes under that day, and that way I can go to look up 94 target, and I can see what that round did once I'm back here at the reloading room. Here's another one. Back here. Every time I see, here's another one. It's getting back to load number 9. Here's target number 50, load number 9 in 09. You got the 1 flyer. I always blame that 1 flyer on me, but over here is 1, 2, 3. There's 4. I like to shoot in groups of 5, and this is probably 200 yards. Yeah, 200 yards. So I got a 1 inch. That's a 1 inch at 200 yards with the 25-06. Now I'm no professional at any of this stuff. I am just a guy that's been reloading for 35 years. I enjoy it. It's one of the fun things that I like in the wintertime, especially if there's a northeaster here in the state of Maine. I can come up here and I can play with my guns, play with my loads, and come up with stuff. I just wanted to give you a kind of a look behind the scenes on what I do with my rifles here in the reloading room. I doubt that I'll do a whole lot of reloading videos. For one thing, this room isn't really set up for that. You know, I might dabble in it in the future. We'll see. We'll see what the comments are. You know, we'll see what the comments are in this video. If you guys are interested in that kind of stuff, then maybe we can play with it a little bit. You know, like I said, though, I'm not a, you know, if you're gonna call, I mean, if you're gonna ask like questions and stuff like that, sometimes I might have the answers, but I'm basically just a guy that has I have these reloading books go back. If I don't have 20 of these reloading books from the years of doing it. Now, I've always shot Hornady. I know that I know that there's a whole lot of other bullet manufacturers out there, and probably some of those are a lot better bullet. But I've shot so much Hornady, and I have so many Hornady books that I stay with it, and it does what I want it to do. As far as you know, like I said earlier, I'm a meat hunter, and every one of these guns shoots for meat, one way or another. Groundhog. I don't use this gun for groundhog, although I could. I use this gun for my coyote hunting, and I have a 22-250 that I use for groundhogs. And groundhog, up here there's not a whole lot of people that do it, like probably where some of you viewers are Pennsylvania area and stuff like that. And I've heard that out there that shooting groundhogs is a really big sport, and even out west. So I'm looking forward to some of the comments that come in on you guys, because some of this long range shooting up here isn't done because we just don't have it. You know, our long range shot would be a big hay field, or it would be the power lines. We have power lines that run the entire length of this state from Canada down. So I mean, you could have a 1,000-yard shot easily out there on the power lines. But if you're thinking about getting into reloading, you start out with a book like this. You get your hands on a book like this. All this is it's all the guns. You can look in the front, and every gun will be there. You look up the 30-06, and it'll give you the recipes that they've tested, and you don't vary from this book. I'm gonna go back in. I meant to tell you. 25-06. The 25-06 has a bullet that goes from 75 grains all the way up. They got 90 grain, 100 grain, 110 grain, 117 grain, and 120 grain. Now, if I'm going to use this for deer, I'm going to bump this up to the 120 grain bullet at least. You know, maybe get away with the 100. You know, you got 117. Right now, I'm shooting the 87, but that's because I have this gun set up for coyotes, and 87 grain bullet is and this gun is perfect. It's a flat shooting gun with that bullet, so that's why I do it. But anyways, if you don't know anything about the 25-06, maybe you want to give it a look-see. And that's the other thing with these books. Even if you're not a reloader, but you just want to know more about rifles, pick yourself up a Hornady book or any of the other bullet books that are out there, and you can read about the rifle that you want. And the other thing is, like, I hope you can see any of that, probably can't. But each bullet that they make is in this page and tells you what it's used for. So if you want to try a bullet out and you're not sure if it's going to be good enough for deer hunting or moose hunting or whatever, you can look the bullet up right here in the book, and it'll tell you what it'll tell you what it's used for. It'll tell you if it's self-defense. It'll tell you if it's big enough to take down a deer. All that stuff. So it's really good knowledge, but you can read on the front page of every one of the rifles that's in this book. You can read when the thing was developed, when the rifle was developed, who developed it, what year it was developed in. and then it'll what tested the best in their rifles. So if you want to start with what tested the best in their rifles, you can. So it's just a super way to start learning how to reload. And that's how I learned how to reload. I got a book, I had my guns, and I started collecting the gear that it would take to reload bullets. And this is you can see it, the room's not finished off. It's been this way for 30 years. But anyways, that's because it would be a lot of work to empty this thing out and put some walls up. Besides that, I kind of like it this way. Have a coffee with me. We'll take a breather. So you guys have a great week, and I will see you next week.